Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Jamie Hughes. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
So, let's start off with your story. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you into the work you're doing today?
Sure. Where I'm at today, I'm a social psychologist. I have a specialization in trauma, self-care, and resilience. And I'm also an author. I've written 4 books so far in a series, working on some more, and also a life coach. And a big part of my ability and passion to do what I do is from my personal experience growing up. I experienced childhood trauma when I was very young at the age of 8. Grew up in an abusive environment, suffered with depression most of my life. Didn't even begin to, you know, start a healing journey till my mid 20s. And then a few years ago, probably about 5, 6 years ago, I was diagnosed with ADHD. So it's been a fun path, but all things that have helped lead me in a direction of personal healing and helping others.
Now, did you recognize the signs of ADHD before you were diagnosed?
Hindsight, yes. At the moment, no. So looking back, I can recognize that some of the signs were probably already there, or that I had for a long time. I think, and most others too think that my depression was at such a raw stage for many years growing up that it was just the driver in the car, and any other symptoms I had were just in the back seat and weren't
Hmm.
really, didn't really affect my daily living. And so yeah, once I got older and those symptoms started kind of being magnified, I guess, then it was like, what? Wait a minute, what's going on here? Is this is this what I think it is? And then I could look back and say, oh yeah, I do remember being like this.
Now, I'm going to ask you what I usually ask everybody else is before you got your diagnosis, did you kind of feel like you were on the outside looking in? And then after you got your diagnosis, were you kind of like on the inside looking out thinking, oh, that explains X, Y, and Z to my life? Why I had all these different things, why I had trouble with executive functioning, like time blindness and everything else that went along with it?
Yes, absolutely. When before I realized what I had on my hands, there were times where, especially like with time blindness, where I would just like, I mean, I was young, I wasn't old at the time. Thought in my head like, wow, am I getting like old age symptoms like already? I'm not even 30, I'm not even 40. How can this be happening? And so, yes, afterwards, it's like, oh, now that makes sense. Now that
Mm,
makes sense why, I had certain patterns in my behavior that were really just kind of subconscious, just going on in the background, so to speak. And even some of the symptoms that are kind of more prevalent with ADHD, I growing up attributed to the depression. And and there's some cross tracking there, and depression and anxiety are also very common and comorbid with neurological issues as well. But like just the racing thoughts, like my
oh
mind
yeah.
constantly going 500 miles an
Mhm.
hour, I kind of always attributed that to the depression, thinking that, well, because I have such emotional heaviness, that my
Mhm.
brain is just like out of control. And so, yeah, it made a lot more sense after the diagnosis. Yeah.
I mean, one of the greatest quotes was by an ADHD specialist, Dr. Ned Hallowell. He always says that having ADHD is like having a Ferrari with bicycle brakes.
Yeah.
'Cause your mind is going 1,000 miles a minute and you can't stop it.
Yes, very true. And it's it's interesting because it comes and goes, you know.
Hmm.
And this is one of the reasons that it's difficult sometimes for people to recognize what it is, because one day you can just be on fire. You can
Yeah.
accomplish 10 things in a
Hmm.
day and you're boom, it's your superpower. And then a couple days later, you're just like flat tire, like I'm drained, I'm just mentally fatigued.
Oh yeah.
And so you kind of dismiss it to be like, well, maybe it's just physical fatigue. Maybe it's
Mhm.
just I had more caffeine that day than I did this day. You know, so we kind of tend to write off some of those symptoms and not recognize that, hey, this could be a whole nother issue.
Now I want to go back. You mentioned that you dealt with depression,
Mm,
and everyone knows with depression there's anxiety. How did you manage to overcome them? Because I know there's tons of people out there listening and even not listening who are dealing with depression and even anxiety.
mm.
What was your go-to way of dealing with it and then overcoming it?
Yeah, I tell you, my path to healing with the depression was definitely not intentional. I I stumbled into it, and there's a lot I've learned since then.
Hmm.
My depression was unchecked, untreated. I my very first run-in with mental health professionals was when I was 18, when I had a suicide attempt.
Oh
That was
God.
the very first time since the age of 9 that I'd suffered grief and depression. That was the very first time I ever talked with someone, and they were able to say, yeah, this isn't just you had a hard time. This is depression. This is something deeper. And even then, I wasn't ready. I was just still so young and so without direction, without anything, coming out of an abusive home, you know, and so it was up until probably my mid 20s, about 24-ish, somewhere in there, where I wanted to go to college and I hadn't been yet. And so I wanted to go into psychology, um, to understand more, you know,
Hmm.
and so I started that path, and that's kind of what helped lead me into an intentional effort to get better, to go to start therapy. And then once I started therapy, you know, tried that a couple of times and eventually found a track that sort of clicked and clicked to the point where I realized, wait a minute, I can go through this. I can try and get a little bit better. And so that's really where it kind of started and sort of turned
Hmm.
on the positive track. Now, even from there, you know, there's still a lot of work, a lot of uphill and downhill battles. Um, I got introduced to journaling, to therapeutic writing, and that was something that absolutely saved my life many times.
Oh yeah.
Being able to learn to examine, observe what I was feeling and thinking in terms of my feelings, in terms of symptoms, and anything in life circumstances, observe, and then kind of separate and say, okay, now what can I learn from this, or where do I need to go with this? If I'm having this problem and it's over and over, what can I do about it? Can I make life
Hmm.
adjustments? Can I get treatment? What do I need to do?
Now, would you say that was a turning point where you began to say, "This is what I'm taking my mental health seriously now, and I need to make changes from that"?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That was even with, like I said, like the suicide attempt, and even, you know, with some other things when I was younger that circumstances, you know, I could recognize that they were bad. I could
Hmm.
recognize that, oh, okay, I'm not, you know, that I'm struggling with a problem here or whatever, but I just had not reached that point to where I wanted to do something about it. And so once I did, though, like I said, that once I took that first step and said, I'm going to be intentional about this, I don't know how it's going to work out. I don't even know if it's going to work out, but I'm
Hmm.
going to do this. I'm going to start something.
Yeah.
And that was the starting point.
All right. Now, I mean, managing ADHD alone is a chore and a half. I mean, you know that from
Yes.
someone who's got ADHD, but how did you manage ADHD with depression along with or PTSD? I mean, all three are so heavy,
Mhm.
and depending on where you are with ADHD, I mean, how did you work about managing all three of them to get yourself better?
So, with so since the ADHD didn't really become the front seat issue, I say the prominent issue until much later, by
Hmm.
that time I'd already been on a healing path for the depression. So I'd been working with that for many years and had a lot of growth, a lot of self-reflection. So I had kind of already established things in my life that were more beneficial than harmful. So when I kind of got to the to dealing with the symptoms of ADHD, I sort of already knew, okay, here's how I approach this. Now that I recognize that this is the issue, I can kind of see more clearly, okay, here's this and this, these, the parts that are the problem parts,
Yeah.
I could kind of see them more clearly because I'd already practiced that, so to speak, with
Hmm.
depression. So really just working through the process of healing and growth with one issue, I was able to apply that to another issue
Hmm.
and start saying, okay, one, I can accept this because acceptance is a huge part. You know, there's some give or take, and there's people that are like, well, you can't, if you say this, then that's going to make it true, or that's going to be negative. And that, I don't think that's the case. I think the sooner you can accept it and say, okay, this is a small part of me. It's not the whole me, but it's a small part. Now, what can I do about it? Then I
Yeah.
think you can effectively make changes, whatever you need. If you need to go to the doctor and get medication, great. Do
Hmm.
some homework, talk about it, learn as much as you can. And that was something I got from
Hmm.
my struggles with depression was become a student of myself, learn myself, recognize what's working and what's not working, and do homework, learn as much as I can about these issues so that I can have an informed conversation with a doctor, with a therapist, even with my family and friends, my support system. I can more readily say to a coworker, the second time I have forgotten to respond to them, oh, you know what? That's my fault. I own that. Sometimes my ADHD kicks in, but what I'm going to do to manage that is from now on, when your emails come in, I'm going to put the flag on it so that I get a reminder until I respond to you. So I learned those techniques to, you know, own it and then put something into place to overcome it or alleviate it.
Now, you had said you used the magical word when you were talking, which was acceptance,
Yes,
because there are so many people out there who don't want to accept it because to them that means, oh, I have a disability. I'm going to
yes,
be labeled different. People
yes,
are going to look at me differently.
yes.
How do you deal with a client who comes with you and like, I don't want to accept I have this? How do you go about talking to them and saying, listen, this is what you have. You can deny it all you want. It's part of you and
Yep.
you got to live with it. Because I remember when I originally went away to school for my bachelor's degree, I went to University of Wisconsin in Oshkosh, where they had a specialty for like those who were disabled who had ADHD and dyslexia. And I remember the head of the department saying, You're going to live with it, you're going to die with it, but you're going to learn to work with it.
Yes. Yes. That's a perfect way of putting it. Yes. When I speak with people, with clients, or just anybody, yeah, acceptance is a huge part
Yeah.
because you can't fix or improve something that you don't even acknowledge.
Hmm.
You know, you can meander your way around and just wander through life and try to ignore it, but you're going to get the same results
Hmm.
regardless. Yes, you're going to have people that label you. Yes, you're going to have people that say you're different and weird and all that good stuff. It's going to happen regardless. Once you come to terms of accepting it, then you can, like you said, understand that it's a part of you. It's not the whole you, it's a
Hmm.
part of you. And when you do that, then you can start saying, okay, now I can set realistic goals for me, not what everybody else is saying that my goals should be, not what everybody else is saying how I should think, how I should talk, how I should behave. I can start being in more control of me and how I live my life just by accepting and learning what I'm dealing with and what I need to do about it.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you deal racing thoughts. How do you deal with that? I mean, everyone's got their own ways. I've talked with people, and some people say, "Oh, I jot my thoughts down on a piece of paper, or I record them on my phone, or
Uh-huh.
I go back to them later." Or how do you deal with it? Because I know with me, if I don't take something to help me sleep, like
Uh-huh.
CBD, I'll be talking to myself until I crash.
Uh-huh. Yes. I Mine is so when I catch myself, first of all, I have to catch it. And
Hmm.
and that's a skill that you can learn. You
Yeah.
know, you can learn to do that. You can learn to when you realize it's happening to kind of stop. Well, I see what's happening here. And I've learned to use sort of a distancing technique wherein that when I catch it, I'm immediately I'm over here and the racing thoughts are over here. And it's almost like I can view them, like almost like watching a TV show or a
Mhm.
movie or listening to music. I see it as something separate. And I
Mm.
see that, okay, it's going on. I see you. I see what's going on here. All right, I'm just going to take a second. And I actually let it kind of play out for a few seconds before I try to start redirecting. Letting it kind of play out sort of, it kind of gives me back a little bit of control. And at the
Mhm.
same time, it's not like I'm fighting against something. I'm allowing it. Um, and so after a few seconds, then I'm like, okay, what in here can I or do I want to focus on? So instead of trying to block all the stuff out and say, no, 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 no,
Mhm.
no, 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 I, I kind of calm it down for a second and then I choose something in there and then I start redirecting and say, okay, one of the things I'm thinking about is the stuff I've got to do tomorrow. Okay, so let me put those in order or what is the priority for that? The priority for that first thing is I have a meeting at such and such a time. I'm good. I'm good. I kind of go down the list, not all of it, but
Mhm.
after like, two or three things, it kind of naturally deflates it a little bit. It kind of helps calm the nervous system down. And so now I'm kind of like, all right, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. So I acknowledge and I make sure that I'm good on those things. And that's something that a technique I've learned that's helped me a lot. Does it work 100% of the time? No, but at least I would say 80 to 90% of the time, that's what I've learned that helps me with that aspect.
Now that kind of reminds me of like what I've learned from using like Headspace, the meditation app, is
Mm,
they tell you when you hear a thought, jot it down
hmm
and just note it, recognize it, and let it go.
hmm
Note that it's there
hmm
and say to yourself, ah, that's a thought. And then let it go. Don't hold on to it for long
Right.
Because, I mean, what's funny is I've gotten to the stage of meditation to where I'm able to literally hear my own thoughts.
Oh, uh-huh.
And I'll recognize, oh, wait a minute. I'm not focusing on my breathing, but I'm
Yes.
focusing on the thought.
Yep.
And I gotta
Yep.
let that go. Otherwise, I
Uh-huh.
stop breathing.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, wait a
Exactly.
minute. I'm not breathing anymore because I'm focusing on this.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going, okay, let this thought go and go back to my breath.
Yep. Exactly. And that's something I love about meditation. I do meditation every morning. I've been doing it for a few years now, and that's something that absolutely helps me with everything in life. I am, I can look back 10 years ago and the way I process and handle emotional issues, cognitive issues, focus issues, the whole nine is leaps and bounds better and different.
Hmm.
Again, not perfect, but so much better, so much better. And that one thing, the meditation, is so beneficial just for what you just said.
Hmm.
It's some people still have a misconception of meditation that you're supposed to sit there and think of nothing and have a blank
No.
mind. And that's not going to work. You can try that. It's not going to work. I tried it. It doesn't work. And that's not the point. But the point in when you focus on your breathing, what you're doing is you're redirecting your nervous system and you're helping to bring it to a balance. You're
Yeah.
helping to bring it to homeostasis, so to speak. And that's the whole point because as you learn that, you're you're teaching your body that pattern and it sort of starts becoming the norm versus, you know, something special or different. So yeah, it's meditation's a huge benefit. It's one of the best uh, methods. Meditation and yoga are
Oh
one of the
yeah.
best tools for PTSD. And people don't, sometimes they don't think about that. They think, oh, only therapy is going to work. No,
No.
you, it's in your body. It's not just that you have a memory of something bad, of a trauma. It's in your body, your nervous system. You have to
He's on
find
high
things that,
alert. Yeah.
yep, exactly.
I mean, people, yeah, you're right. People don't realize meditation and yoga, what they do is they ground you.
Mm-hmm,
They keep your body at a level of calmness to where you can get through life. You
mm-hmm,
can focus on yourself instead of everything else going on around you.
yep, yep, exactly.
Now, how did your healing journey begin, and what were some of the helpful tools and moments that helped you move forward?
Um, so, um, when I first started therapy, of course, it was all the beginning level stuff.
Mhm.
And if people has been to therapy, you know, for a while, I understand, but maybe if you haven't been to therapy or if you're new, at first it's going to be your beginning level stuff.
Yeah.
You've got to look at what's in there. You got to discover what's in there, what's from the past, what, you know, thoughts and feelings that you're dealing with that are raw or heavy. You got to kind of get those out at first. And then you start learning how to process those
Mhm.
and start learning tools or strategies to heal and to grow and to move forward. Um, at the very beginning of mine was I had to talk about my childhood. I had to
Mhm.
talk about the grief from my mom dying when I was 8 years old.
Oh
I
God.
had to talk about the utter pain and just anguish from my dad saying that I was worthless and that I was unwanted, you know, as a child and growing up. And I had to go through that. And it sucks. I wouldn't want to re-go through that at all. If I had to do it again today, I would be like, ugh. And that's very hard and it scares people sometimes. But it's what you have to go through. You have to get through that first part. After that, after that's when I started to learn, okay, let's look at the support system I do have. I have really good friendships. I have some family members that I have good relationships with. Um, I have people I work with that I like and that I can talk to. I have hobbies, I have interests, I have talents, I have skills. So after that initial just raw emotion stuff, that's when I was able to start. Now let's look at the positives and see what I can do with those and where they can take me. And it's almost like there's a quote, and I don't know if this is the entire quote, but I just remember this one piece and I always have hung on to it. It says, your barriers become your bridge. Once you start taking those pieces out of your barriers, you can start putting them down for you to step forward on, and you will eventually build a bridge to go where you want to go.
That's very, I mean, that's so important. People don't realize that they can take their barriers, their obstacles in their life, and say, I'm not going to let these be my obstacles anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to use them to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people are stuck
Mm-hmm.
because of their trauma, because of their past, because of their disability. And what do you tell someone who's like, I'm stuck where I'm at. I don't know how to move forward because of my past, my trauma. What do you tell them to say, hey, the first step's the most important step?
Yeah. And that's just facing it, getting it out. You have to find a way to get it out. And there may be a process to that. And that's natural too.
Hmm.
It's not just you go into a therapist's office and in an hour spill your guts and that's it. There might be a process to it. I used to work with I used to work in a domestic violence and sexual assault agency. And especially with sexual assault, that's not an issue that most people, you don't just rip the band-aid off on that.
No.
Sometimes it takes several steps before a person can really face, the event. They can start off talking about the circumstances, you know, time, day, the relation to the person, if they were known, unknown, etc. But it takes, you have to kind of slowly walk into getting to the point of the actual assault in a case like that. You can't just jump straight into it. So even that, there might be steps and there might be a process, but that's normal. That's normal. That's your brain trying to keep you safe.
Hmm.
Our brains are wired to survive
Hmm.
and to keep us safe, even from emotional harm. They're wired to keep us safe. So if you're struggling, if you're stuck, that's normal. That's actually very normal. You just got to find the right person or the right method or the right steps to go forward to take that next step.
Now, when you have your clients, how do you go about dealing with them, especially those who are dealing with depression? Do they come to you knowing that it's not a one-step session, that it's going to be a process to at a slow pace to get them to where they want to go?
Um, Sort of, but not always. I think some people just, like you mentioned earlier, they maybe realize, hey, I'm stuck. Not sure which way to go, to move forward or what to do. They don't know what the process is, but they may have just an idea or thought of or feeling that, hey, I'm stuck, you know,
Mhm.
or some people are like, look, here's where I want to go. I don't know how to get there. And a lot of times, and with me doing life coaching, I also do business coaching a lot for entrepreneurs who not only just the practical steps they need, like how do I get my business license? How do I get a website? How do I do this, do that? Sometimes there's underlying issues of, well, I want to do this, I want to go and accomplish this, but I'm afraid of failure, I'm afraid of rejection, you know, all these things. And so sometimes we end up uncovering another issue or a deeper issue that has to be dealt with
Hmm.
not necessarily first, but it has to be dealt with before or in or along with, progress in other areas to overcome things. So I typically right off the bat I have a couple of assessments that I have clients do, and they kind of fill in this stuff, and it's just general questions like, where are you today emotionally? What is your goal? Are you looking to start a business? Are you looking to improve your relationships? Are you looking to improve your mental health? What's your goal? What do you think you're here for? And from there, then I can start, you know, asking deeper questions about, okay, well, if this is the direction you want to go, what do you think is keeping you from that? So I start trying to identify those barriers.
All right, let's switch gears for a minute. You've written several books. Can you share
Mhm.
a little bit about your books? And I also know you've written papers as well. Can you talk
Yeah,
a little bit about what you've written on anxiety and stress?
sure. So, my the paper I had published was actually kind of a surprise. I didn't intend for it to be published, and I actually had no idea. But when I was in my master's program, I wrote my paper on mental health issues among law enforcement
Hmm.
and submitted it. And the professor and the co-professor loved it. And, we had this discussion. I had to do like a defense of it and whatnot, the normal stuff. And after the official part, uh, my professor kind of said, "Hey, I really like your paper. I think it's important, and you've done a really good job on the research. You've laid it out very well. Would you be okay if the school published it?" And I was like, "What? Uh, really?" And he's like, "Yeah, seriously." I'm like, sure, okay. So it was kind of a surprise. And he was like, "Yeah, I would also like to ask for me if I can put it in the curriculum for my class." And I was like, "Oh gosh, okay, yeah, awesome." So that was kind of a surprise, but it 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 kind of fed into my future goals when I was taking my master's degree was I wanted to learn more about trauma and mental health and neurodivergency and social psychology, all these issues. I wanted to learn more and what was current so that I could somehow get that information out to people, not just people going to take a master's degree at a university, but anybody that needed it. Um, so that's kind of what led up to me writing the books
Hmm.
was after I graduated, I was like, wow, I've got a whole lifetime of personal experience. I've got many, many years of professional experience dealing with, I've worked in children's hospitals with their families. I've worked in, like I said, domestic violence and sexual assault. So I've got a lot of this experience, and now I have 2 years worth of research and writing on all of these issues. So I'm going to just start writing books, and I'm just going to take it one topic at a time so that when someone reads it, they can, one, get a better understanding of what they're dealing with,
Hmm.
two, have very practical steps and strategies that they can implement to help today
Hmm.
and to start leading forward to long-term healing. And so that's kind of where the idea and the desire for the books came from. So the first four in this series is managing anxiety, PTSD, adult ADHD, and clinical depression. And so that's, you know, that's the whole purpose is for people to read them and get a better understanding of what they're dealing with and to start working forward in their path of healing.
Now, was there something you learned while you were researching or writing that completely shifted how you think about healing or mental health?
Yes. Yeah. So for quite a few years, I have sort of teetered on the edge of nutrition and mental health. And for the longest time, and psychology is still a very young science. It's still growing and growing rapidly, actually. But if you look into the written history, we're talking not even 200 years. The real writings didn't start until like maybe the mid or late 1700s was probably the first. And then it really didn't take off and become like a science until like the mid 1800s. So in terms of that, compared to like physics, it's a very young science and it's been influenced by different schools of thought.
Yeah.
So that's constantly changing. Well, it has become more and more prominent. There have been more real studies, not just, speculations, but real studies on the mind and gut connection and how
Well,
the
tell me
body and the
about it.
mind work together. There is no separation. It's not your, you know, your thoughts and feelings are separate from everything else in your body. It's not. Matter of fact, you know, uh, pretty much all mental illness we know now, or we realize better, I should say, we realize better that it's almost all a neurological issue. It's your nervous system that's, in the driver's seat of most everything, not just your memories and thoughts and feelings. So I kind of teetered on the idea of diet and nutrition and things like that. The more I've learned over the past few years, including, my master's degree and including research for my books, I am 100,000% on how important diet and not just okay, here's what you should eat. Don't eat bread, don't eat cheese, don't eat chocolate, not just that, but okay, there's things in our bodies that are either contributing or detracting from our mental health.
Hmm.
So, depression, it is extremely common. If you've got clinical depression, like major depressive disorder, you almost guaranteed you've got some kind of stomach problems. Something. You may be lactose intolerant. You may be gluten intolerant. You may have IBS. Something is there. Your gut bacteria. You have good bacteria, you have bad bacteria. Your bad bacteria probably outweighs the good. That stuff actually releases toxins into your nervous system. And your gut actually produces serotonin, which is what? That's your happy drug. That's your happy hormone. So if you're suffering from clinical depression, guess what you ain't got? You don't have a balance of serotonin. It's not healthy. It's not in a healthy balance. It's not just coming from your brain. So the fact that there are key nutrients either deficient or lacking or whatever out of whack in your body absolutely has an effect on your mental health. Every one of my books, there is a section on diet because
Mm.
it's that important. If you can start making one or two or three little changes and start working on that within a year, most people can recognize a difference. So yeah, I am totally enthralled right now by the studies, the current studies on nutrition in the body. Again, holistically, nutrition in the body and how it affects our nervous system, how it affects mental health issues. Um, I actually saw a study not too long ago where I want to say it was in England. Now I'm not 100% sure if it was in England or Australia. Anyways, they they worked with a group of children that were ADHD. They did vitamin tests, deficiencies in iron, magnesium, and what else was it? HDA. whatever you get from omega-3 fatty acids. It just left my brain. But the one of the key nutrients in omega-3 fatty acids, like healthy fish, like salmon and stuff. Um, anyways, so they were all deficient in these minerals. And so they started giving them, correct amounts. And within like 3 to 6 months, across the study group, there was a 30% reduction in some of their symptoms. So it's just that it's amazing. I think we still have a long ways to go, but I think there's a lot that we're going to learn in the next few years on how that affects all of these issues we deal with.
What's funny is you're not the first person to mention mind and body and mind and gut. I've talked
Mm,
with several people in the past, and they all say the same thing. Your
hmm.
mind and your gut are connected one and all,
Yep.
and that they affect how you react, how you think, how you do everything.
Uh-huh.
And even to the point of saying a good percentage of those who are neurodivergent
Hmm.
will have mind and gut issues because
Yep.
they're more likely to have them than those who are neurotypical.
Absolutely. You've got it's called the HPA axis, which is hypothalamus pituitary adrenaline gland. They all work together for um, survival instincts. So when you talk about fight, flight, or freeze, this is
Hmm.
what happens automatically in your body when there's a trauma or a warning, something, you know, something danger, danger, danger. This automatically kicks in. Well, one of the things that they do is produce cortisol, and cortisol is a
Hmm.
stress hormone. So it's supposed to basically, almost like adrenaline, it kind of pumps your body up and makes it ready to take certain actions, or it warns your body of danger. Well, that cortisol, guess where it goes? It goes to your gut. And if you have too much cortisol, guess what it does? It interrupts the production of serotonin in your gut. So now your gut's not sending serotonin to your brain. So trauma has a direct effect on your gut health, which has a direct effect on your mental health, cognitive, emotional, social, the whole nine.
Now, I want to go back and talk a little bit about anxiety because I
Mm-hmm.
know I deal with it. And through my show, I've learned I have what's called anticipatory anxiety, which is
Mm-hmm.
I overthink something and to
Yes.
the point of getting too anxious and my body goes into shock.
Yes.
How do you deal with someone who's got anxiety levels so high that it will take forever to work to bring them down? What are some
Mm-hmm.
of the tools you use to help someone with anxiety? Because I know there's crippling anxiety. I mean, I have a good
Yes.
friend who's got a sister who's got severe anxiety that she won't even step outside of her own house.
Yeah. Yeah. Social anxiety is rough. It's rough. I've I've had a very minor taste of that at one point in my life, and I didn't like it. And I can't even begin to imagine the people that it's a regular part of their life. Um, so with anxiety that's that high, my recommendations always are to treat what you have at hand. So if
Mhm.
it's in the severe range, then you need to go get medical treatment. You know, this is one piece of the puzzle. I, you know, Being on the right medication will help lower your responses, and that's what they're doing. Those medicines are treating those hormones and neurotransmitters in your body that are out of balance, and they're helping to bring them down. And then from that point, then you can actually start implementing, some of these other tools like, you know, reframing. So taking when you have these thoughts coming out, you sit and you take the time to recognize them and you almost catch them, talking about like Pokemon, can I catch them all? You see one and you kind of catch it and then you're observant and then you start reframing and say, okay, I see this. I see what I'm thinking and what this thought is about, but this is not what I want it to be. This other thing, this is what I want it to be.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a process, but you have to start with where you're at. So definitely if it's in the severe range, if you feel that it's if you're trying some of these methods like meditation and reframing and journaling, and it's just not, you're still getting the same high level um, reactions, uh, then absolutely go get the help that you need. Even if it's right now, you may get the right medication and then start working on these other methods and be able to cut back in 6 months or a year or whatever. That's what I did with my depression. I used to take medicine every day. Every day of the week, I took a pill and it helped. But the more I grew, the more I healed, the more I realized, you know what? I'm at a point now to where no matter what I do, I don't have the same experience that I used to. Instead of having crippling depression for 3 days, even if or when I have a depressive episode, it's only 4 hours. It only lasts half a day, and I can manage that. So talks with my doctor. I went and showed her the research and data and everything and said, I'm, I'm going to cut back. Instead of taking it every day, I'm only going to take it 3 days a week. And we talked about it, and she knew what I wanted and the goal, and I did it, and it worked great. It was just enough. It was just what I needed, but I had already gotten to, through a certain point of healing.
Hmm.
So absolutely, seek medical advice, get what you need for right now, and then that will give you the ability to start implementing some of these other methods. Like I mentioned, journaling, I love it. And the more you can get those thoughts out, one, it kind of relieves the pressure in there by getting it out. And two, going right back to becoming a student of yourself. Once you write it out, then you can sit down and say, now let me look at this and see what I can learn from it. You can learn about triggers. You can learn about, life circumstances. You can learn what's working for you and what's not, and then start working on towards your strengths.
No, let's switch gears for a minute. I mean, I know a lot of our listeners who are struggling, but what would you say to someone who wants to help somebody who doesn't know how?
Oh, I love this question. This is one of the best questions. There are many, many people who genuinely want to help someone. And it's like a lot of other things in life. If you haven't experienced it, you really don't know about it, you
Hmm.
know? Um, I've never been bungee jumping. I I couldn't really tell you what your thoughts and feelings are going to be when you do it. I've never done it. That's foreign to me. If there's a person, a family member, a friend, a spouse, a loved one, a child that are starting to have symptoms or that deals with a mental health issue, no matter what it is, first first thing to do is don't try to lessen it. In other words, don't try to just make them feel better by with your words. Don't just say it's okay, it's going to get better. Uh, you just think positive. Um, Tomorrow's a new day. Oh, you'll outgrow this. You're just going through a phase, or you don't look like you got ADHD, or you don't look like you got depression. Don't try to lessen what they're feeling and experiencing by dismissing it, because that comes across as just so hurtful. So there's a couple of two things that you can implement to help someone. One is learn yourself. You buy the same book that they need to buy. You go online and watch some videos, some podcasts, some shows like this with experts, with people that have experienced it, and listen and learn from them, because that's how you're going to understand it. And then you can say, oh, wow, dang, I never realized it was that bad, or I never realized this was a challenge that this person had. Um, and two, learn to be a good listener. Learn to be a good listener. It's a skill you can learn. Same thing. Go on YouTube, find a video, say listening skills, and somebody will teach you good listening skills.
Hmm.
Um, when you want to help someone, you want to comfort them. You want to take away the pain. And sometimes we do that by, oh, you're going through, oh, yeah, I've been through that. I've been there too. Yep, I know exactly what you're going through. When you really don't. Um, and so learning to be a good listener is tell me what's going on and just shutting up and listening. You learn to give affirmations, which is, I see, I understand. How is that affecting you right now? How does that make you feel? What do you need in this moment? So do some homework on the issue at hand, learn as much as you can, and then learn great listening skills. You will be amazed at how if you learn if you do those two things at how effective you become at becoming that person's support system, the person that they now know they can go to you and they can talk to you about these problems.
Now, on top of that, what are some of the common mistakes people make when trying to support someone with a mental illness, and how can they do better?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, you know, get rid of the platitudes right off the bat. That's the first thing. No platitudes. Just don't. Don't. It's insulting
Hmm.
and it tells the person I can't be open with this person. I can't tell them what I'm feeling and thinking. So cut the platitudes right away. Another thing, don't offer support if you're not going to give it. So I've heard people say, oh, just let me know if you need anything. A person that's struggling, that already feels like they're a burden, you know, when you're dealing with an issue, whether it's emotional issue, cognitive issue, you kind of feel like you're a burden to other people, to your family. Like, man, if I go to them with this problem, it's just going to create a problem for them. It's just kind of putting it in their laps now, and so they already feel that way. So
Hmm.
don't just say, "Oh, just let me know if you need anything." They're not. They're not. Be proactive. When you talk to them, say, "Hey, how you doing? How's everything going? How's your treatment going? What are you learning any new coping mechanisms? You know, what are you working on right now? What are you thinking? What are you feeling?" Ask the questions. Be there for them. Don't just say, I'm putting it all on you. If I really want to help, then let me do it. Let me do it now. Um, I would say another thing too is it's difficult, but you have to understand that this is all a process. This didn't happen overnight. It's not going to be fixed overnight. It's not a light switch. You know, this may involve a lifelong journey of learning how to function differently. You know, autism and ADHD, a big part of those issues is not just erasing symptoms, it's learning how to function in a positive manner with what you've got. You know, there's a lot of skills in there. You know, people with autism and ADHD tend to be at times, very logical thinkers, very excellent problem solvers, excellent memory skills sometimes. ADHD, probably not so much. The memory, it kind of comes and goes, but very creative in nature. So there's a lot of superpowers in there. There's a lot of skills, but you may have to learn how to operate within those
Hmm.
and know and learn how to work around some of the deficits, some of the emotional issues. Those are skills that can be learned, but it takes time. It takes time. So as a loved one and a friend, just know that it's going to take time and your encouragement goes a long way.
Now, in your experience, what is the most powerful thing someone can truly do to support a loved one without losing themselves in the process?
Ooh, yes. Yes, that's a good point. You can
Yeah.
you can get overwhelmed. You can lose yourself in the process. Um, help teach them resilience. Help teach them resilience. And that is helping them learn the skills to handle it themselves. That's not the same thing as, oh, it's all on you, you deal with it. Too bad. That's your problem. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, okay, if memory is a problem, then how can you overcome that? What tools can you put in place that can you use to help supplement that and help learn and grow from that? So in other words, help them learn how to help themselves. And that gives them autonomy. You know, I'm my own person. I don't want someone else telling me how to run my life and what choices to make. You know, the same with any other condition. There's been so many good shows, TV shows,
Mhm.
or movies about Down syndrome that I think we've learned a lot from that. And there's been so many actors, and again, it's because they're in the public eye, not just because they're actors that makes them special, but because they have an opportunity to talk about, some of these behind the scenes thoughts and fears and challenges. But there's been so many that have come out, in the past couple of years that have said, hey, look, just because this is who I am, I don't want to be, bossed around and told I can do this and I can't do that. I need some autonomy. And that's something that is very hard as a parent, you know, for your child to be a special needs child, to try to take care of them and get them what they need, to learn to kind of let them go, to learn to kind of cut the cord, so to speak. So teaching resilience is that's the best way to keep getting from getting overwhelmed and
Mhm.
adopting, you know, all the issues and problems and concerns on yourself.
Now, you've been a lot for yourself. What did your self-care routine look like, and how do you keep your mind and body grounded while supporting others?
Oh, yes. So um, I do meditation every morning. The only time I don't is like if I'm traveling or something like that. Um, Even if I'm on vacation, I might not do it the same way,
Mm.
but I may sit down and enjoy the sunrise or the beach or the wherever I'm at, and just kind of relax and do a little meditation internally. But meditation has been one of my keys. Journaling, um, I constantly use journaling. When I first, when I was first learning to use it as a tool, not just as a creative outlet,
Hmm.
but intentionally, I did it very regularly. And the more I've grown and healed, the less I've needed to do it like daily or even weekly. But I know now because I know myself, I've learned what helps me, what hurts me. I can tell, I know when, oh, I need to go write this out. I need to get my journal out and do some journaling. I did some, was it this week? Yeah, I did some this week. I think the first day of this week. I knew that there was something ruminating. I knew that there was a thought, a concern that had been ruminating for a few days and it wasn't going away. I was like, I need to get that out because it's stuck. And that was my way of getting it out was journaling, writing about it. So meditation, journaling. Um, I've learned with my diet that there are certain things that are beneficial to me. I'm not I'm not vegan. I'm not on the entire whole kick. I do not recommend copying the things I eat because I still eat I still eat, chocolate and ice cream and Doritos and all those things, just not every day.
Hmm.
But I do make sure I have a good probiotic on a regular basis. I do make sure I eat a lot of fruits on a regular basis because of the nutrients in them. I do make sure that if, like for instance, in the winter, if I'm not going to be out, if the sun's not going to be out during the winter, I usually take a vitamin D supplement, you know. So the diet, the journaling, the meditation, the exercise, I'm not as consistent as I'd like to be, but I do go and
Hmm.
I'll, try to at least get 1 or 2 days in a week. But I walk a lot also. So I stay active, you know. Um, so those are some of the things that have been important and learning to lean into my support system, which is for me has been one of the most difficult. All those other things are things I can do that are kind of easy. Leaning into my support system has been one of the most difficult because I was raised to think I was unwanted, that I was a burden. So, me even going to a friend, even my best friend, and saying, "Hey, I'm having a problem," goes against my subconscious. It goes against my very nature because of what I was raised to believe about myself. So that struggle has been the most difficult for me, but I've learned to do better. I'm still learning to be, I will probably always be teaching myself, be reminding myself, hey, this is an aspect, this is good for you. And even when I catch myself not doing it, I will remind myself, oh, remember when you do this, you feel better.
Hmm.
So those are the things I've learned that in my self-care that really, really make a difference.
And finally, where can people find out more about you and your books and read your papers?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, which is managingmentalhealth.net. And there's social media. Would love for you to follow on social media. And I love questions, so definitely reach out. Um, the links to the 4 books I have are there. So whichever one you're interested in, either for yourself or as a family member, as a loved one, they are there listed, so you can go there and check them out. Um, if you're interested in coaching, individual coaching, there's the little form there that you can fill out. So all of that's there. The scholarly work, I believe, no, I know for a fact, I remember seeing this. If you go to Google Scholar,
Hmm.
which is like the academia side of Google research, um, then you can look it up there by my name, or you could look it up by the title, which was mental health issues among law enforcement, mental health issues among law enforcement, or Jamie Hughes. And you can see that paper there.
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Jamie Hughes, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you.